On October 27, 1992, three close-knit teenage girls in the small town of Willow Creek, Kentucky, entered the Black Hollow cave system armed only with a few flashlights, some snacks, and the recklessness of 15-year-olds. A month later, a search team discovered something that defied all laws of nature and human survival. What they found deep within those cold limestone tunnels has haunted investigators for decades. The official report was sealed, witnesses were silenced, and the truth about what really happened in those dark passages remains buried to this day. This is the story of the Black Hollow Cavern's disappearance, a mystery that has gripped Kentucky for over 30 years. Three girls walked into the darkness of the earth and came out changed. What happened in those tunnels? Who kept one of them alive? And where did the other two go? Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest stories. That fall in Kentucky, the leaves turned early, painting the hills in blazing reds and golds with a sense that something was waiting, lurking. In 1992, the world was far different from today. No cell phones, no GPS, no way to instantly reach worried parents. When someone went missing, they were truly gone until found. Hannah Miller, 15, was the quietest of the group. Her long brown hair often hid her face, her eyes cast downward when deep in thought. Hannah loved books about explorers, spending hours poring over topographic maps and geological texts. Her bedroom was filled with old maps and photos of famous caves worldwide. After losing her parents in a car accident at 12, she lived with her aunt, who worked 2 jobs to support Hannah's education and books. Her aunt worried that Hannah spent too much time alone, immersed in caving magazines, instead of connecting with peers. Rachel Summers, 16, was a year older but born just weeks apart. She was the group's natural leader, tall, with messy blonde hair and fiery blue eyes. Rachel had a way of talking that earned adults' trust, but was bold enough to dive into adventures others would avoid. Her father worked at a lumber mill. Her mother cleaned houses for wealthy families. Strict rules governed her home. But Rachel always knew how to bend them without getting caught, timing her escapades perfectly before her parents grew anxious. The third member was Lily Tran, 15, the only child of a Vietnamese family who had moved to Kentucky 2 years prior. Her father taught at the local college. Her mother ran a small nail salon. Lily was bright, reserved, and always carried a film camera to capture anything interesting. Her glasses made her dark eyes seem larger, and her gentle smile endeared her to Hannah and Rachel from their first meeting. Though she struggled to fit in at school, Lily found unconditional acceptance in her 2 friends. The trio spent afternoons exploring the woods behind town or reading about cave systems across the U.S. in the library. Their shared passion was caves, and Black Hollow Caverns was their ultimate dream. Unlike the small caves around town, Black Hollow was the state's largest cave system with hundreds of miles of mapped tunnels. Most of it was part of a national park, open only for guided tours, but rumors of secret entrances and unexplored areas persisted. The idea started innocently. A week before their disappearance, Rachel found an old article in the school library describing unmapped branches of Black Hollow. The article included a sketched map with entrances marked in Dangerous experts only. But for 3 adventure-hungry teens, dangerous only fueled their determination. As they stepped through the cold darkness beyond a rusted fence, the air inside the cave felt different, thick, damp, with a sharp mineral smell. Hannah swept her flashlight across the mottled limestone walls, tiny crystals reflecting light like specks of stardust. Lily quietly snapped a few photos, the camera's click echoing in the tight space, making her shiver. Rachel led the way, her voice bouncing from multiple directions, creating the illusion of others walking with them. "Come on, just a bit deeper," Rachel said, her steps quick and sure. But the deeper they went, the less their sounds felt like their own. Hannah slowed, her ears straining to pick out strange noises woven into their footsteps and breathing. There was something like dripping from the ceiling, punctuating long silences, but occasionally another sound, soft, intermittent, like loose pebbles kicked aside. Lily glanced at Hannah, lips pressed tight, eyes full of questions. "Did you hear that?" Hannah whispered, but Rachel didn't turn, calling over her shoulder. "Just echoes. Caves are like that." They squeezed through a narrow crevice, bodies twisting to fit. The air grew colder, their breath forming faint mist in the flashlight beams. As Rachel scanned for a path, her light caught a long scratch on the stone wall, deep and old. as if something had clawed at it long ago. Hannah shivered, quickly jotting a note in her journal. They reached a wide chamber, its high ceiling draped with stalactites, water dripping steadily onto the slick floor, creating a rhythmic tap, tap. The girls sat to rest, sipping water. But before they could relax, a faint thud came from the narrow passage behind them, like a stone dropped into a puddle. Hannah leapt up, swinging her flashlight toward the sound. For a fleeting moment, she saw a dark shape dart through the shadows, too fast to make out. "Someone's here," she said softly. Her voice tense. Rachel frowned, but stayed calm. "If there is, it's probably locals or cavers." Lily clutched her camera, silent. The sound faded, replaced by an oppressive silence so thick the girls could hear their own heartbeats. A cold breeze swept through, extinguishing Lily's flashlight. She fumbled to relight it, fingers trembling. Hannah looked at Rachel. "We should turn back." Rachel took a deep breath, her eyes flashing defiance. "No, the map says the big chamber's just ahead. We're not quitting now." And so, despite the cold and the unnatural sounds, they pressed deeper into the earth. The path sloped downward, the wet stone floor slick, forcing careful steps. Hannah stayed in the middle, her flashlight sweeping slowly to catch any cracks or sudden drops, while Rachel kept a brisk pace, as if stopping would drain her courage. Lily trailed quietly, one hand on her camera, the other bracing against the wall for balance. The dripping sound persisted, but Hannah noticed something unsettling. Whenever they stopped, it stopped too. It wasn't water, it was like footsteps shadowing them. She opened her mouth to speak when Rachel let out a soft cheer. "We're here." Ahead, the stone corridor opened into a narrow gap between two massive boulders. The dark void beyond promised a larger space. "This has to be the big chamber," Rachel said, turning with excited eyes. Hannah eyed the gap, noting the lower ceiling that required crouching to pass. The ground crunched with loose dirt, small pebbles rolling underfoot. Lily swallowed hard, whispering, "Is it safe?" Rachel laughed. "Safe isn't fun." She knelt, crawling through first. Hannah followed, keeping her distance to avoid shaking the ceiling, while Lily hesitated before ducking in. Inside the gap, Hannah felt the claustrophobic weight of stone pressing against her shoulders. The darkness ahead was thick, Rachel's flashlight barely illuminating her shoes. Hannah heard Lily's quick breaths behind, mixed with the sound of falling gravel. Then, a faint crack sounded above. For a moment, Hannah wasn't sure she'd heard it. But then the crack became a dull boom and everything happened at once. A violent tremor shook the crevice, dust poured down like rain, and from above, a massive rock broke free, crashing to block the path. Hannah screamed, instinct curling her body, but she was trapped, her upper half toward Rachel, her lower half still near Lily. "Hannah!" Rachel yelled, turning back, grabbing her hand. Lily tried pulling Hannah from behind, but before they could act, another loud collapse roared. Shattered rocks rained down, forcing Lily to retreat. The crevice shuddered, then fell silent, as if nothing had happened, leaving only Hannah's coughing and her racing heartbeat. She tried to breathe, but her lower body was pinned. Rachel pushed at the rock with all her strength, but it barely budged before falling back. "It's not working," Rachel gasped, scanning for another way. From Lily's side, a flashlight beam caught Hannah's pale, strained face. "We have to find a way around," Lily said, voice shaking. "Can you hold on, Hannah?" Hannah nodded, forcing calm despite the primal fear rising, fear of the dark, of dwindling air, of being left behind. Rachel hesitated, then said, "Okay, we'll backtrack, find another route to you. Don't move, or it could collapse more." Hannah wanted to stop them, but before she could speak, Rachel's flashlight faded, followed by Lily's. For a moment, darkness engulfed her, so heavy she could hear her sweat drip onto the stone. Somewhere deep ahead, Hannah thought she heard a faint step. Then a cold breeze grazed her neck, too subtle for a cave draft, but enough to make the hairs on her neck stand. She turned toward the sound, but only thick darkness met her, swallowing her remaining flashlight's beam. On the other side, Rachel and Lily's footsteps faded, leaving Hannah alone in the narrow crevice, trapped between two worlds, one with her friends and the exit, the other, a pitch-black void she couldn't see, but felt watching her. Hannah fought to stay calm, listening for any sound, but only her heartbeat echoed in her ears, joined by the monotonous drip from somewhere deep in the cave. She didn't know how long passed until a flash of light flickered from afar, accompanied by a voice calling her name. "Hannah! Rachel! Lily!" a man's voice, mixed with the crunch of rocks. She screamed back, throat dry. "Here! I'm here!" But the sound bounced back, distorted and distant. The light vanished, replaced by total silence. Hannah curled tighter, conserving strength and flashlight battery. Outside, night had fallen when Rachel and Lily burst from the woods, gasping, covered in dirt and dust. They ran toward town, shouting, alerting a few residents at the forest's edge. An older man immediately called the Pineford County Police, reporting a cave disappearance and possible collapse. Within 40 minutes, police cruisers and rescue vehicles with flashing red lights arrived at the barricaded entrance. Spotlights pierced the night, casting blue and red glints on the rock face, and faded no entry signs. Rachel, trembling, recounted the events to the police, her voice breaking from panic and exhaustion. Lily clutched her camera, pale, managing only a few words. A local rescue team, familiar with Black Hollow's terrain, was quickly mobilized. They brought ropes, helmets, headlamps, and gas detectors. An old map of the cave system was spread across a car hood, marking entrances, exits, and hazardous areas. The rescue leader, Frank Delaney, frowned when he heard about the narrow crevice where Hannah was trapped. "That area's prone to further collapse. We need to be careful," he said grimly. Two teams split up. One followed Rachel and Lily's route, the other explored alternate paths through side branches. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply, breath turning to white mist in the headlamps. Radios crackled, mixing with the sound of boots on slick stone. From Hannah's position, faint headlamp beams appeared in the distance. She shouted with all her strength, but the rocks muffled her voice. A rescuer leaned close to the crevice, calling, "Hannah, can you hear me?" His voice urgent. "I'm here, trapped. Rocks blocking." She yelled back, tears streaming from relief. They tried prying stones with crowbars and hands, but moving one caused debris above to shift, threatening more collapse. Delaney signaled to stop, opting to try another branch. Outside, news of the incident spread through town. Pickups, bikes, and pedestrians gathered near the woods. Some brought flashlights, others volunteered to search, while many just whispered, faces torn between curiosity and worry. The first night passed in tense anticipation. Rescue teams rotated, staying inside no longer than 45 minutes to avoid exhaustion and low oxygen. Rachel and Lily were sent home to rest, but couldn't sleep. Rachel was haunted by Hannah's trapped image, while Lily kept replaying the feeling of being followed before the collapse. The next morning, the team called in cave experts from Louisville, bringing small drills, rope-mounted cameras, and seismic sensors. A camera threaded through a gap above Hannah's suspected location showed only rubble, dust, and darkness. Over the next days, the search became a major operation. The cave map was marked with explored areas, blocked paths, and odd airflows. Gas detectors noted dropping oxygen levels in deeper branches, heightening fears for Hannah. Strange sounds from deep in the cave made everyone pause, but they were just water or natural rock falls. On day 7, a rescuer reported 3 deliberate taps on a rock wall, evenly spaced, like a distress signal. The team rushed toward it, only to find an empty space and a dark pool. No trace of anyone. Hannah's family stayed at the site, bringing her photos and clothes for scent dogs. Some dogs reacted strongly near a narrow branch, but it led to a bottomless pit, impassable. On day 14, the operation leader announced a reduction in search efforts due to collapse risks and exhausted resources. The news made Hannah's aunt faint, requiring medical aid. Still, a small group of rescuers and volunteers persisted, searching in their spare time, believing Hannah could still be alive until a body was found. Rumors spread quickly. Some claimed to see flashlight beams deep in the woods at midnight. Others swore they heard faint singing from the cave's mouth. A local hunter even said he saw a small, gaunt figure dart across a trail near the cave, vanishing into the forest like it never existed. These unverified stories made the case's atmosphere even more eerie and unpredictable. By day 30, most residents and media believed Hannah was gone. But then, a sudden report from a hunter in the southern hills, over 3 miles from the cave entrance, shifted the entire operation in a new direction. The hunter, Earl Whitman, was used to patrolling the southern hills to check his animal traps. That morning, with mist still clinging to the grass and the air heavy with the damp of night, he spotted a small figure stumbling out from the forest's edge. At first, Earl thought it was a lost child, clothes caked with mud, hair matted in clumps. But as he got closer, he recognized the wide, wary brown eyes and the gaunt face with protruding cheekbones. It was Hannah Miller. "My God, is that you?" Earl blurted, cautious yet stunned. Hannah looked at him, lips cracked and dry, and said in a whisper, "Wasn't alone." Earl supported Hannah back to town, radioing the police as they went. The news spread so fast that by the time they reached Willow Creek's edge, an ambulance was waiting. Paramedics wrapped Hannah in a blanket, checking her pulse and blood pressure. What shocked them was that despite a month in harsh conditions, her body wasn't as dangerously depleted as expected. Hannah was rushed to Pineford County Hospital. The media swarmed, cameras flashing, reporters jostling with questions. Sheriff Howard stood guard at the door, demanding space. In the hospital room, Hannah sat on the bed, bony hands clutching the blanket. Her aunt hugged her tightly, tears streaming. "You're okay, Hannah. You're here," she whispered. But Hannah's eyes seemed fixed on some invisible point no one else could see. When asked what happened, Hannah spoke slowly, haltingly. She was trapped after the collapse, but that first night, someone approached. "I didn't see their face, just heard footsteps. They left water, food, and vanished before I could say anything." Her story sent shockwaves. Doctors asked how she stayed healthy. Hannah only said, "Because of them." She didn't say person or people, just repeated the vague them. News of Hannah's return flooded headlines. Teen survives miraculously. After 30 days underground, who kept Hannah Miller alive? But skepticism followed. Local papers and radio suggested her mystery person was a trauma-induced delusion. Rachel and Lily's families, whose daughters were still missing, reacted coldly. They wanted answers. Why was Hannah saved, but not the others? In interrogations, investigators pressed Hannah for details about where she was held, her path, or any clues about the stranger. But each time she shook her head, as if a wall of foggy memory blocked her. Rescue teams revisited suspect cave branches based on her account, but all led to solid rock walls or impassable pits. Meanwhile, Willow Creek became a hub for reporters and thrill seekers. People pitched tents near the woods, hoping to catch a figure or record odd sounds. National TV crews arrived, but Hannah, after leaving the hospital, avoided the press, staying home with curtains drawn. At night, her aunt said, Hannah woke startled, mumbling in her sleep. "Don't leave me, I can still hear." A month's disappearance ended with a strange return, but instead of closure, it opened a new layer of mystery. Who was with Hannah in the dark? And where were Rachel and Lily? In Willow Creek, no one had answers. All they knew was that since Hannah's return, rumors of cave people surged stronger than ever. The morning Hannah was found, Willow Creek's sky was gray, heavy clouds hinting at coming rain. In the southern hills, Earl Whitman retold his story to investigators, each time adding details he swore he couldn't forget. Hannah's eerily alert eyes, her trembling hands not from cold, and the sharp, damp cave smell on her clothes. Impossible, if she'd only left the cave hours before. As the ambulance brought Hannah to town, curious residents gathered along the road, whispering as the convoy passed. To them, a teen surviving 30 days underground wasn't just a miracle, it was an unsolved question. In her hospital room, Hannah leaned against pillows, her gaze distant, as if seeing past the sterile walls. Doctors noted that, beyond mild dehydration and scratches, her condition was remarkably stable. This raised suspicions. Either Hannah found food and clean water in the cave, or someone truly cared for her, as she claimed. When reporters got access, Hannah spoke briefly. "I wasn't alone," she stressed, voice soft but firm. "Someone, or some people. They brought me water, food. I heard footsteps, sometimes whispers, but when I turned, no one was there." Her words became bold headlines. Evening TV shows ran segments analyzing, was this a miraculous survival, or an elaborate fabrication? Some psychologists suggested post-traumatic stress distorted her memories, creating fictional details. But veteran cavers believed Black Hollow's vast unmapped system could hide undocumented areas, or even a secret community. Lead investigator Mark Hensley noted gaps in Hannah's story. He had the scene reconstructed based on her account. At the barricaded entrance, Hannah stood silently, staring into the darkness, as if weighing whether to go further. Finally, she pointed to a crevice. "There, I remember hearing water from there." The team entered, But even with specialized gear, they found only a short passage ending in solid rock, no sign of another area. Yet, gas detectors recorded stronger airflow here than in other branches, suggesting hidden spaces or passages. Hannah's story left Rachel and Lily's families hopeful, yet furious. They wanted to believe their daughters were also saved, but were angry. Hannah couldn't, or wouldn't, say where they were. Rachel's mother confronted her at the hospital. "If someone saved you, why only you?" Hannah looked down, silent. That night, the hospital stationed a security guard outside her room to block reporters. At around 3 a.m., the night guard reported faint footsteps pausing in the hallway, then vanishing when he checked. Security cameras caught only a blurry shadow passing. The next day, Hannah requested early discharge, saying she wanted to go home. Really, she sought escape from prying eyes and relentless questions. But even at her aunt's, she couldn't avoid scrutiny. Reporters lurked outside, neighbors visited, and strangers claiming to be archaeology students requested private talks. Hannah kept curtains drawn, only peering out at the empty road. Once, by the window, she glimpsed a small, gaunt figure in a gray hooded coat at the forest edge, standing motionless, staring at her house. Seconds later, it turned and vanished into the trees. She told no one, but was certain it moved with the same slow, impossibly light steps she'd heard in the cave. Her obsession grew. Hannah began jotting memories, footsteps, unclear whispers, faint smoke like from a distant fire, and the feeling of eyes watching from the dark. She hid these notes under her pillow, part of a story only she understood. Outside, Willow Creek split into two camps. One certain Hannah was saved by cave people. The other convinced it was her imagination, or a cover for Rachel and Lily's deaths. But no explanation satisfied everyone, and Hannah's return marked a turning point, steering the investigation in a new direction. Hannah's return, rather than closing the case, thrust her into a storm of doubt. For days, the Pineford County Police Station stayed lit. Lead investigator Mark Hensley sat with stacks of files and recordings of Hannah's interviews, replaying her mentions of them. Her account was consistent but vague, lacking specifics. No clear path, no precise shapes, just a sense of a presence in the dark. "They brought me water, food, then vanished," she repeated in most sessions. The media seized on these gaps. A major Louisville paper ran a mocking headline: "Invisible Rescuers Save Teen in Cave." A national news channel had a survival expert argue that Black Hollow's conditions made surviving 30 days without ample food and shelter impossible. "If she's telling the truth, who were they? And why save only one?" the expert asked on air. Rachel and Lily's families grew increasingly tense. Lily's father visited Hannah's aunt's house, bringing a photo of the three girls from last summer. He set it on the table, pointing to his daughter's bright smile. "If someone saved you, why not my daughter?" Hannah stared down, fingers clenched white. She didn't answer or cry, just stayed silent like a locked wall. Doubts weren't just external. Some rescuers whispered that Hannah's discovery site didn't align with cave routes. She appeared in the southern hills, over 3 miles from known exits, and no one could explain how a frail, weakened teen crossed that rugged terrain. Hensley tried another approach. He took Hannah to the state's forensic lab for psychological and memory tests, using controlled recall. In a quiet, softly lit room, the doctor asked her to close her eyes and recount everything from the moment she was trapped. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied. She spoke of thick darkness, slow footsteps, smoke wafting through cracks. When asked if she heard clear words, Hannah paused. Then she whispered, "Yes, but not in English." This was noted in the report, an unidentified language, low-pitched, words swallowed in the throat. But when asked to mimic it, Hannah shook her head, saying if she tried, they would know and come for her. When this leaked, wild theories exploded. Hermits living in the caves for generations, escaped convicts, hiding in unmapped branches. Each story plastered Hannah's name across papers, often with cruel comments. One evening, after an interrogation, Hannah stood long at her bedroom door, clutching her notebook. Outside, wind howled through trees. She pulled the curtain, and her heart clenched. At the forest's edge, under patchy moonlight, a small, gaunt figure in a gray hooded coat stood motionless, facing her. Hannah stepped back, pulse racing. When she looked again, the space was empty. But the feeling of being watched lingered, and she knew, whether others believed or not, they were still out there. The next morning, Mark Hensley visited the Pineford County Library with a new goal: not to find fresh clues from the scene, but to dig into Black Hollow Cavern's history. He'd heard enough rumors, from lost expeditions to the military using the area as a secret base. Most were hearsay, but flipping through yellowed newspapers, a pattern emerged. A 1912 article detailed 3 miners vanishing while surveying a new cave branch. A week later, searchers reported 3 taps from deep within a rock wall, but digging found only a sealed-off space. No bodies were recovered. In the 1940s, during World War II, Black Hollow was partly sealed for geological hazards. But in Federal Works Agency archives, Mark found blurry photos showing the cave entrance reinforced with steel and bricks, with undated warning signs. No documents explained why. Most striking was a 1965 report by archaeologist Gerald Whitby. He wrote that in an unnamed Black Hollow branch, his team found signs of temporary habitation, a stone hearth, animal bones, and crude metal tools, not matching local native craftsmanship. The report ended abruptly. This area needs further study, but the survey team was denied re-entry. Mark closed the file, feeling he'd brushed against a deliberately buried story. He brought the documents to Hannah. In her aunt's living room, curtains drawn, Hannah flipped through, lingering on an old cave map. Here, she pointed to an unnamed branch, faintly drawn near a dangerous marker. I think I was near here. When Mark asked why, Hannah said that one night, lying in darkness and silence, she heard metal clinking and stronger wood smoke. She felt close to a place where people lived, not just a barren crevice. Mark cross-referenced her account with historical events. He noticed a chilling pattern: the 1912 disappearance, the 1965 archaeological report, and Hannah's story all involve sounds, signs of life, and locations near the same map area. Meanwhile, new rumors spread in town. An 80-year-old Willow Creek native brought Mark an old leather journal saying his father was a guard for a 1942 government project, tasked with watching a special Black Hollow entrance. The journal noted, at night, faint singing came from the cave, like multiple voices blending. Orders from above: don't enter, don't ask. Mark thought this might explain Hannah's not alone claim. If a group descendants of wartime hideouts or another community lived in the caves, their helping Hannah wasn't impossible. The question was, why save one and let the others vanish? Hannah listened but didn't respond immediately. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a thin scar on her left wrist, like a shallow cut healed over. I don't remember clearly, but I think they left this on me, she said, voice fading. When Mark asked its meaning, Hannah shook her head, as if speaking would summon something back. The story began to spiral beyond a typical missing persons case. Local media shifted from doubting Hannah to fixating on the mysterious cave community. Some history enthusiasts even organized their own surveys, ignoring police warnings. Just days later, a group of 4 claimed to hear 3 rhythmic taps from deep in a side branch, but when they returned, the sound was gone. In his journal, Mark wrote clearly, "If the history and witnesses are true, we're not just looking for missing people, we're touching a part of Black Hollow someone has tried to hide for centuries." And the most terrifying realization was that he knew time was running out before those, or whatever, in the darkness realized someone was tracing their steps. 3 days after Mark reviewed the historical records, an urgent call from the county police station pulled him from his desk. The officer on the line sounded tense. "Someone turned in an item found at Black Hollow. You need to see this now." At the station, on an old wooden evidence table, lay a small flashlight, its metal casing scratched, battery cap loose. Etched faintly along its side were 3 letters: R.S. Rachel Summers' initials. The finder was a 14-year-old boy, son of a family, living near the forest's edge. He said he spotted something glinting under decayed leaves while trapping squirrels in the southeast cave area. The flashlight was caked in dried mud, its battery corroded as if exposed to the elements for weeks. Strangely, the spot was nearly 4 miles from the main cave entrance, and according to topographic maps, that area had no natural exits from the Black Hollow system. Mark showed the evidence to Hannah. When she held the flashlight, her grip tightened, eyes wavering. "Yes, this was Rachel's. I remember. She always carved her name on her things." Mark asked when she last saw it. Hannah said slowly, "Right before the collapse, Rachel was in front. This was strapped to her wrist." Her words sent a chill through Mark. It meant Rachel, or at least her belongings, had traveled far from the collapse site. To verify, Mark sent the flashlight to the state forensic lab. Analysis of the mud and leaf fragments stuck in its crevices showed they came from an ecosystem at a different elevation than the main entrance, suggesting the flashlight had been at a secondary exit or ventilation shaft. More crucially, under the mud were thin red fabric fibers, matching the stitching of the jacket Rachel wore when she vanished. When this leaked, public reaction erupted. Some saw it as proof Rachel was alive and had escaped to a distant point. Others suspected someone, perhaps the they Hannah mentioned, had moved the item to mislead the search. Meanwhile, a former rescue volunteer approached Mark with an odd story. During the second week of the search, in a narrow southern branch, he heard metal clattering nearby, but his flashlight revealed only an empty space. The feeling, he said, was like someone stepped back into the dark to avoid being seen. Mark pieced it together. The southern branch aligned with where the boy found the flashlight. He marked both points on the map, drawing a line between them. It cut through an area never thoroughly surveyed due to soft, collapse-prone rock. That afternoon, Mark visited Hannah again, bringing the map. When he pointed to the unsurveyed section, Hannah was silent for a long moment, then said softly, "I think I was led through a very narrow, freezing place once, then the air smelled different. Like I wasn't deep in the cave anymore, but near the surface." She hesitated, adding, "But I don't remember seeing sunlight." Her words made Mark realize there could be a discrete network of secondary exits, used for escape or limited movement, close enough to reach the forest undetected. Before leaving, Hannah suddenly asked, "If you find them, will you promise not to let anyone hurt them?" Mark didn't have time to answer before she turned away, eyes fixed on the window where the forest's edge sank into darkness. He knew they were no longer a vague concept to her, they were real flesh and blood beings, moving between light and shadow. Rachel's flashlight wasn't just evidence now, it was the first clear clue leading out of Black Hollow's maze. And Mark understood that following it would take him into an area history had deliberately erased from official maps. News of the RS-etched flashlight hit the front pages of 3 major papers overnight. Sensational headlines like "Proof Rachel Summers is Alive," with images of the mud-caked flashlight fueled heated debates in Willow Creek. Online forums buzzed with questions. Why was a victim's item found 4 miles from the cave entrance? Is someone hiding a secret exit? Rachel and Lily's families demanded a full-scale search revival. But Pineford County authorities were cautious. The sheriff's office spokesperson said only, "We're verifying the evidence's relevance to the case." This vague response was like pouring fuel on a fire. Media pressure grew heavy. National news channels sent permanent reporters to town, pitching tents across from the police station. Each time Mark Hensley stepped out, he was swarmed with microphones and rapid-fire questions. Do you believe Rachel's alive? Is Hannah cooperating? Is there really a hidden community in the caves? Mark stayed calm, giving short answers, but each silence became a new headline. Hannah was virtually confined to her home. Every time she opened the curtains, camera lenses pointed her way. One reporter posed as a delivery worker to get close, forcing her aunt to lock the gate and install cameras. Public attention didn't bring safety. It made Hannah withdraw further, speaking less, sleeping fitfully. In closed meetings, Mark's superiors pushed for quick results. The public demands answers. If we don't control this, they'll search themselves, and it'll be a disaster, a senior officer warned. Mark knew an unprepared group entering Black Hollow could trigger another collapse or disappearance. Meanwhile, a group of mystery hunters from out of state arrived with recording devices, metal detectors, and infrared cameras. They vowed to find the cave people before the police. Their first night camping near the barricaded entrance was live-streamed on social media, drawing thousands of views and cheering comments. The next morning, Mark learned one of them went missing for hours in the eastern forest before finding his way out, claiming he saw a flashlight and heard a voice guiding him, though no one else was nearby. Pressure wasn't just external. Rachel's family filed a court petition to force police to release all case data, including unpublished maps and reports. Mark knew if these leaked, untrained civilians would flood Black Hollow's uncharted branches. Late one evening, Mark sat alone with the map spread on his desk, red markers glowing under the lamp. He was at a dangerous crossroads. Dive into the untouched area for the truth or step back and let public pressure swallow the investigation. Beyond, at the forest's edge, the darkness remained a thick veil, hiding something no light or noise could pierce. Hannah, barely left home since the flashlight was found. Her small upstairs room stayed shut, curtains drawn, with only a sliver of light seeping through. Her aunt noticed Hannah rearranging items oddly. Books, clothes, and personal belongings pressed against the west wall, leaving an empty space in the room's center, as if making room for something. Every night, Hannah stayed up late, writing in a thick leather notebook she wouldn't let anyone touch. Its pages were filled with strange symbols, curved and angular, unlike any letters her aunt recognized. When asked, Hannah said only, "I'm remembering." Her aunt didn't press, as pushing made Hannah go silent for hours, eyes drifting to the window, as if hearing a distant sound. Mark visited a few times, bringing investigation updates, hoping to jog Hannah's memory. But he saw that instead of escaping Black Hollow's darkness, Hannah seemed pulled back into it. She asked chilling questions like, "If you meet them, what will you say first? Or do you believe there are places humans shouldn't enter, even once?" Her aunt told Mark that Hannah's nighttime behavior had grown strange. At 2 or 3 a.m., she'd stand by the window, whispering in an unintelligible language, then retreat into the dark without turning on a light. Once, her aunt saw her place a cup of water on the windowsill. By morning it was empty, with faint mud marks on the wood. Hannah didn't return to school or contact old friends. Town gossip swirled. Some said she was haunted by something from the cave. Others claimed she was hiding Rachel and Lily's whereabouts. Each rumor, each suspicious glance on the street, pushed Hannah deeper into her small house at the end of the road. Mark tried to pull her out. One weekend afternoon, he invited her to the town's market fair. She initially refused, but agreed, perhaps to escape her suffocating walls. Amid stalls smelling of baked goods and country music, Hannah seemed lighter, even smiling when a little girl gave her a wild flower. But the ease didn't last. While walking, Hannah froze. Her eyes locked on a dark corner between two stalls, where a gray hooded figure stood motionless, half their face obscured. In a blink, they turned, blending into the crowd and vanishing. Hannah paled, gripping Mark's wrist. "They're here," she whispered, then said no more. That night, when Mark brought her home, Hannah paused at the gate, staring into the dark trees at the yard's edge. "Do you hear it?" she asked. Mark listened, but heard only wind. Hannah pressed her lips, hurried inside, and shut the door. He stood there, a chill creeping up his spine. Hannah's life, after the darkness, wasn't a survivor's return. It was a life caught between two worlds. The noisy lit town, and an invisible secret one she'd stepped into, and couldn't fully escape. Mark realized that to find the truth about Rachel and Lily, he had to not only explore Black Hollow, but also pull Hannah from the shadow clinging to her daily. That night, after Mark left, her aunt's house fell silent, save for the ticking clock and wind brushing the roof. Hannah sat at her desk, leather notebook open, pen paused mid-page. The dim desk lamp lit only a small circle, the room's rest swallowed by darkness. She heard her heartbeat, but beneath the quiet was another sound, faint, distant, like a stone rolling in a deep crevice. Hannah looked up. The window was shut, curtains drawn. But the feeling returned, someone was out there still waiting. She stepped slowly to the window, parting the curtain just enough to see the dim backyard. Moonlight slipped through clouds, casting a streak onto the trees at the forest's edge. Between two dark trunks stood a slender figure, adult-sized, in a gray hooded coat, unmoving, just as at the market. Without seeing their face, Hannah knew it was them. A cold breeze passed, but the figure didn't stir. She shuddered, easing the curtain shut, trying to convince herself that not seeing meant not being affected. But as she sat, 3 slow taps sounded from outside. The next morning, her aunt found crescent-shaped mud marks under the windowsill, smaller than adult footprints, but deeper than a child's. Hannah glanced at them, silently wiped them clean with a damp cloth, and offered no explanation. Mark returned that afternoon with drone photos from the survey team. He showed Hannah a northeastern forest area, where a small sinkhole appeared after last week's rain. Its mouth led to a deep, dark space, wide enough for a person to fit. "If this is a secondary exit, it might connect to the branch you passed through," Mark said. Hannah studied the photo, a flash of fear in her eyes. "Don't. You shouldn't go alone," she replied. That night, Hannah didn't sleep. She sat in the dark, listening to every sound outside. Near 3 a.m., an odd noise rose, slow, steady footsteps circling the yard, crunching on gravel and leaves. Hannah strained, heart pounding. The steps stopped under her window. The air grew thick, icy, as if the outer darkness seeped in. Then, through the glass, Hannah heard whispering. Low, drawn out, not English. It matched the sounds from the cave, heard half-conscious, when they left water and food. Her body froze, hairs standing on end. The whispering lasted seconds, then stopped. When Hannah dared look again, the yard was empty, only trees swaying lightly. But on the windowsill sat a small, rough cloth bag, placed there unnoticed. The next morning, while her aunt was at the market, Hannah opened it. Inside was a frayed red fabric scrap, identical to Rachel's jacket color. Its edges were torn, stained with dark soil. She held it long, hands trembling. No note was needed. Hannah knew it was a sign. They were still out there, holding Rachel, or what remained of her. Mark got the news that day. When he arrived, Hannah handed him the bag without a word. Seeing it, Mark knew the investigation had entered a new phase, one where the line between hunter and hunted was blurring. At the town's edge, the forest stayed silent, but Hannah knew the shadows never left. They were waiting for the right moment to step from their veil, and when they did, no one could pretend Black Hollow was just an abandoned cave system anymore. The Black Hollow disappearance and Hannah's strange return reflect a still relevant truth in American life today: the importance of thorough preparation, transparent information sharing, and heeding even the smallest danger signs. In the story, 3 teens carried flashlights and adventure, but lacked a clear plan, didn't tell anyone their route, and entered a risky area without gear or a trained guide. This is a mistake many still make when hiking, caving, or engaging in outdoor activities in the U.S. The lesson is, GPS, satellite phones, and location-sharing apps exist to save lives, but only if we use them proactively. Another detail: the community and media pressure skewing the investigation shows how, in modern America, public opinion can derail the search for truth. While social media and 24/7 news spread information fast, they also breed misinformation, complicating work for investigators and those involved. Finally, the vague existence of they and their traces remind us that some things remain beyond human understanding. This isn't just about mystery, but respecting communities or circumstances we don't fully grasp. In modern life, the key lesson is balancing curiosity with caution, exploration with self-preservation, so no trip becomes a journey of no return. If you want to keep exploring chilling mysteries like the Black Hollow disappearance, hit subscribe to catch the next story. Thank you for joining us, and see you in the next video with truths still hidden in the dark.